Hello, I'm Ian Henschke and welcome to State Line South Australia. In a moment, the Immigration Department's answers to questions about the proposed detention centre for the Adelaide Hills. But first to Port Adelaide. It's long been a dream of the state government, the Land Management Corporation and many people in the port area to transform the industrial region of the Docklands into a residential style development. Well, now the wisdom of those plans is being questioned. A report by the Environment Protection Authority says it does not support the next stage of the new Port Keys development because of a range of issues, including unacceptably high levels of dangerous microparticles from nearby industries. The government is downplaying the issue, calling for calm, but the opposition is demanding the Planning Minister resign. For decades, people have been demanding the clean-up of the port. Pollution has been poisoning the dolphins and also causing problems for people as well. Since the early 1990s, residents have been calling for action.
Well, there's pollution from trucks, pollution from the cement works here, you've got pollution from everything.
Your place is always dusty and on your roofs and things like that.
And the problems in the area still exist today. Dr Brian Astle has lived in the shadow of the Adelaide Brighton cement works since 1980. Back then, it was a fraction of its present size. The retired academic is on the Adelaide Brighton Cement Community Liaison Group and says, like many other locals, he has lung problems. He says doctors say the moment you drive over the Birkenhead Bridge, you immediately encounter lung problems.
Well, they know it exists, but they've got no medication that will treat it, other than please move to a healthier climate.
But the EPA's report recommending the next stage of Newport Keys not go ahead has clearly upset the government, the developers and the would-be buyers. The Greens' Mark Parnell obtained the alarming report under freedom of information because he said he knew the problems would be there and he hopes the government will support its recommendations.
Dust pollution is a serious health risk. It doesn't sound like much, but particulate matter of the size 10 microns or less, the really small dust particles, they're the ones that go deepest into the lungs. They're the ones that cause serious respiratory problems and asthma and a whole range of things. We need to keep those dust levels down to acceptable levels.
The EPA has given the Dock 1 site in the heart of the port 3 strikes because it's too close to the fuel storage depot, the Pivot chemical plant and the Adelaide Brighton cement factory. It says air pollution is one of the biggest problems and already it exceeds safety guidelines at a nearby monitoring station. It says any future residents would be exposed to unacceptably high levels of particles. And it concludes that the EPA does not consider the site be suitable for residential development and is therefore unable to support the proposed land division. It also comments that despite the fact that companies have been reducing emissions, there are limits to the improvements industry can make.
Already, the people of Port Adelaide are putting up with unacceptable pollution. Why on earth would we add 500 new residents into this particular spot, which the EPA has said is far too close to the sources of this pollution?
And if push comes to shove, Port Adelaide Enfield Council Mayor Gary Johansson says we'd be better off favouring Adelaide Brighton Cement over another housing development.
I think they would have a lot of problems to address the EPA guidelines while Adelaide Brighton Cement remains in that location.
And is Adelaide Brighton Cement going to move?
I would hope not. They are critical to the state, they are a good employer, and they do everything humanly possible to do the best thing by the environment given the nature of their business.
Moreover, Gary Johansson says if council had had its way, instead of the government having its way, it would never have come to this. If the council had been running this and not the state government through the Land Management Corporation, would things have been done very differently?
The council certainly has had concerns for a long, long time in this area. Many years ago, our council introduced a system to stop increases in densities in housing in certain sections of the Lefevre Peninsula because of the known health risks to people living in the area. We didn't want to expose further people to those risks. And this was one of the problems with this development, that council was effectively shut out.
As for the government, it says the planning process was suspended once the EPA report was received, and Planning Minister Paul Holloway emphasises that process